Thank you, Clyde. Good morning. I am Dixie Morrow, and it's my privilege this morning to welcome us all to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Erie. In the good old pre-pandemic days, a year and a month ago, in the physical sanctuary, we would have held in our hands a paper order of service that told us who was speaking or reading or performing, and we would have a hymnal in which we could find the lyrics of the hymns and the words of the readings. In the Zoom sanctuary, graphics shared to our screens serve as a digital order of service. In the upper right-hand corner of your computer Zoom window, your mouse will find options to control whether you are viewing the graphic order of service or the faces of the congregation, the gallery, or some combination of the two. Today, I'm expanding our welcoming announcements to thank in advance our digital ushers and others who are participating in the service. Clyde Wolper is a screen share usher. He makes the graphics appear on all of our screens. Lee Costis is the gatekeeper usher, admitting everyone into the sanctuary from the waiting room. Chris DeCrease and Linda Balsam will operate the remote mute buttons, but please remember that they cannot unmute anyone. That's a Zoom privacy policy to protect us all. Christine Linke will acknowledge the joys and concerns and read the late announcements at the end of the service. Howard Crack and Kelly Armour are the vocalists, and Jackson Froman is our pianist vocalist. Janet Crack has organized the music, and we appreciate all of you and your labors of love. I remind everyone that the service is being recorded and will be posted to YouTube. Our Sunday service theme for the month of April is passion. Today's service is Passion, Reason, and Identity. It is presented by retired political science professor and member of the UUCE since 1981, Bob Rhodes. Bob first attended a Unitarian church, specifically All Souls Church in Washington, D.C. in 1961. He and his wife, Carolyn, started attending services here 50 years ago and joined in 1981. Assisting in the service today will be Linda Graff, leading the chalice lighting, and Nancy Reed, leading the bonds of unions. Now we invite everyone to unmute for a moment. And after we have rung our bells and enjoyed the lovely cacophony of the bells, we will remute. And Howard Crack will welcome us in song.
Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Thank you, Howard. And Bob Rhodes will read our opening words.
It is not by chance that you arrived here today. You have been looking for something larger than yourself. Inside of you, there is a yearning, a calling, a hope for more, a desire for a place of belonging and caring. Through your struggles, someone nurtured you into being, instilling a belief in a shared purpose, a common yet precious resource that belongs to all of us when we share. And so you begin seeking a beloved community, a people that does not put fences around love, a community that holds its arms open to possibilities of love, a heart home to nourish your soul and share your gifts. Welcome home. Welcome to worship.
No, we have the
Whoops.
prelude. Thank you, Jackson. And Linda Graff will lead us in the chalice lighting.
I invite you to light a chalice or candle as I say the words on the screen. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul.
Thank you, Linda. Nancy Reed will now lead us in the Universal Covenant.
We are Unitarian Universalists, a people of open minds, loving hearts, and welcoming hands. We care for the earth and each other. We unite ourselves together for the study and practice of morality and religion as interpreted by the growing thought and noblest lives of humanity, believing that we may thereby prove helpful one to another and promote the cause of truth, righteousness, and love in the world.
Where my free spirit onward leads, well, there shall be my way. By my own light illumined, I've journeyed night and day. My age a time-worn cloak I wear, as once I wore my youth. I celebrate life's mysteries. I celebrate life's truth. the ever-spinning universe. Well, there shall be my home. I sing and spin within it, as through this life I roam. Eternity is hard to ken, and harder still is this. A human life, when truly seen, is briefer than a kiss.
Thank you, Kelly. We have an opportunity now to make an offering to this congregation. The information is on your screens. And Jackson will treat us to some more music. The A Train by Strayhorn, to give you time to copy down any information that you may need to make your offering. Thank you, Jackson. Bob Rhodes will now give us an invitational reading.
There we go. There we go. Okay. We are unaccustomed to the words in this reading prayer that I'm about to give. It's the prayer of the Qazi of northeastern India, a farming and peasant people who call themselves Unitarians and who are Unitarians and are loyal to the core principles of Unitarian Universalism without having any contact, seemingly, with Western Europe or North America. The Qazis are isolated from us, even though they are the third largest community of our religion in the world. They live side by side with Hindus to the west, India, Buddhists to the north, Bhutan, and Islamists to the south, Bangladesh. Separated from our history and culture, yet they express human sentiments like we do about the unity of truth and the importance of good works rather than mere belief, both basic features of historical Unitarian Universalist history. We can thank former UUA President Peter Morales for placing their prayer and acknowledgement of their existence in our hymnal. Here's the prayer. O God, root and source of body and soul, we ask for boldness in confronting evil. When you are within us, we have the power to counter all that is untrue. O Father and Mother of all humankind, may we redeem our failings by the good work that we do. In the name of the one, the only God. Amen.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, loving people, and we are singing, singing for our lives.
Clyde, you can turn screen share off and let Bob have center stage.
You all set here?
We're all set.
Okay, that that was just incredible music. I love that piece by Holly Near. I love Kelly singing it, and I'm going to sound as if I'm going to criticize the music, but I'm not. I want to make a point. How can we be angry and yet be gentle and justice seeking? How are we to reconcile the conflict in Holly Near's song that Kelly just sang so beautifully? Of course, we all feel the passion of anger, but how are we to understand the relationship between passion and reason? Reason suggests logic, the law of contradiction in a syllogism, reflection, and detachment. Passion suggests motivating desire, urgency, action. Reasoning does not necessarily lead to do something about a problem, and passion does not lend itself to understand the particulars of what to do. Finally, there's the relationship between living a good life and accepting death. As Alicia Carpenter expresses it, eternity is hard to ken, and harder still is this. A human life, when truly seen, is briefer than a kiss. She answers that question as she asks it. We live in our loyalties to family, to friends, to blessed community as a spiritual institution. There are institutions, these are institutions that give us identity. But how do we square identity with critical thinking that sometimes requires us to transcend our identity so we can come together with people who are somewhat different than we are? Our polarized nation faces this today. Indeed, critical thinking about political justice requires understanding these individuals in a nation have different identities. The calculus of democracy requires political consensus by many groups and individuals who do not identify with us. That's part of Holly Near's song. I have faith that people intrinsically feel the passion of moral sentiments and responsibility for public and private goods. And with education and social interaction, will have compassion for all people, regardless of race or class or ethnicity or gender. I also have faith that persons with varying identities can reason about what public goods are and come to a consensus about how to resolve problems so that these goods can be secured. Healthcare, just judicial process, fair distribution of goods and services. The principle of contradiction in reason and passion are both essential to a good life. Passion without reason, however, is blind and aggressive. Reason without passion is aloof and elitist. The trick is to keep passion and reason, identity and broader public interests in balance, and that is hard. We all know that both passion and logic are used for evil purposes, and faith itself is often perverted by authoritarians, tropes, quacks, or conspiracy theorists. Lots of folks have faith that the Third Reich would preserve culture and dominance of the Volksgeist in Germany, or that Soviet communism would finally bring justice to the working class. Lots of folks think that COVID vaccines are inserting tracking cells for government surveillance. The expectations of faith are often misleading without critical thinking. The faith I'm speaking of is not based on a certainty of an authoritative book or historical figures or grounded in an ancient tradition, although all three are important sources. Rather, for me, faith is more existential. I have to answer identity questions, and I think so do you. How do I want to live my life? What gives me meaning and purpose? What communities do I want to identify with and learn from? What values do I want to be faithful to, even if there is no certainty they will be successful? After all, the history of humankind is of war, slavery, patricide, genocide, and oppression. The probabilities of history make liberty, tolerance, and love rare events, which, like brief kisses, Alicia Carpenter, during brief lives, makes them all the sweeter when they occur. Sometimes studying the origin of word meanings can help. The root of the word passion can be traced to Greece some 2,600 years ago. It meant pain. 1,700 years later, the word had lost its pain definition. We're around the 12th century at this point. By the 12th century, passion was a theological event, the passion of Christ on the cross, and was closely related to the Christian doctrines of atonement. There are many versions, but basically it is a doctrine that Christ sacrificed his life and suffered to intercede with God and save sinners who otherwise would be sent to hell. Other versions had God sending his son to intercede. Many Christian denominations, even then, completely rejected this doctrine. Moreover, animal and human sacrifice, in greatly varying degrees, is found in the history of most religions. It may be a small gift of food, often eaten by priests. It may be flowers, fruit, burning of oil, candles, money, animal sacrifice, and in the past, and occasionally in the present, human sacrifice. Its purpose is varied: to honor, demonstrate love and respect, but often to show fear of perceived spiritual powers and hope for intercession by appeasing the gods. Rejection of the doctrine of atonement was central to the beginnings of some movements in the Protestant Reformation, especially Unitarian and later Universalist movements. Unitarians and many other Christian groups focused on works, not belief, faith in human reasoning, and passionate commitment to build character and resolve problems, not divine intervention because of the fallen nature of man. Modern applications of the word passion no longer limit its meaning to suffering. Its present use is one describing intense desire, often sexual in nature. At other times, a sustained desire to paint, compose music, be a political activist, make money, be an athlete, or more trivial desires like hoping for ice cream on a warm day. But the association of passion with suffering has not entirely disappeared from the English language. In 1949, this is a favorite story of mine, journalist Red Smith, a very popular athletic journalist, now made a famous sardonic comment describing the passionate agony often associated with writing. Smith was asked if turning out a daily column wasn't painful. "Why no," deadpan Red. "You simply sit down at the typewriter, open your veins and bleed." Writers understand the sometimes painful, passionate discipline necessary to finish their work. Passion lets us enter the world of the arts and the natural world of flowers and trees, landscapes, wild critters, and sweet air. We're social animals. Passion is an essential component of love, of forgiveness, of meaningful creative work and play with our partners, children, friends, and strangers. After COVID-induced social isolation, we are passionately eager to socially engage. In 2020, we passionately embraced politics and voted. But passion is problematic. It may not pay any attention to consequences. It often ignores logic. It isn't enough. You need to balance passion with disciplined reasoning. To do justice, you need to know the consequences of your actions driven by passion. It isn't enough just to sing or pray or lament or moralize. It isn't enough just to be happy. You need to know the consequences of your positions. Walter Lippmann got to the crux of the matter in a speech 65 years ago. People don't become happy by satisfying their passions. They become happy by living within a belief system that restrains and gives coherence to their passions. Some examples of such restraint from the performing arts. A music teacher from the Juilliard once cautioned, I wasn't at the Juilliard, but this is a music teacher from the Juilliard, once cautioned me, don't get so lost in your song that you lose track of meter and tone and whether you are singing ahead of the accompanist. Several months ago, I saw the result of this advice on YouTube. Mahalia Jackson singing in 1971. Now, no one was more passionate than Mahalia singing gospel, but you could hear her skillfully moving from long eights to 12/8 timing, never missing a beat in her jazz style, passionate, innovative, but rational and disciplined. Examples from Law and Liberty. Projecting passions and doing justice are not always compatible. Think of marginalized, sometimes despised people in need of civil liberty protections, in arrest, legal assistance, jury trials, sentencing. They need rational, consistent procedural rules, attorneys protecting them from mobs and bigots. They need jurors and judges fairly examining facts and law. On balance, they need well-trained police committed to their communities. They investigate and patrol. Passionate civil liberty attorneys and judges who are disciplined in due process and law. Examples from elections. Political activists on both left and right often make passionate demands at the expense of reality. Think of the impassioned faction who lost the election in 2020, but carried their passion over to manufacture an alternate reality that they won. And on the other side, activists whose passion is driven by the lack of health care, the plight of immigrants at the Mexican border, or brutal police behavior. I consider myself one of those activists. Forget that many others have a different moral agenda and are equally passionate. In a pluralist society, a democratic society, neither side can resolve the issues that divide us by passion or intellectualizing alone. They have to engage with one another to prioritize, compromise, and sometimes convince their opponents of their own position. The alternative is war and strife, which is what we got in 1860. Passion can also have bad results. Political activists, once they are successful, sometimes forget the justice issues that gave them their initial activist passion. They enjoy the spotlight, the seduction of power, status. They like the attention, possessing inside information, and think of the lucrative jobs awaiting them after leaving office. As a graduate student in Washington, D.C. in 1961, I met a very young senator by the name of Eugene McCarthy. Older folks here will know who Eugene McCarthy was, at the Brookings Institute. McCarthy was speaking to a small group, cautioning activists not to forget that why they became activists. McCarthy was an activist with the Democratic Farm and Labor Party. He wasn't even a member of the Democratic Party, like Bernie. But he was running for the presidency under the Democratic Party ticket shortly after this talk. McCarthy was also a Benedictine novice for a short while and did not separate his religious passion from his politics. You cannot run for office without passion and discipline if you are running, as he was, against a sitting president, Lyndon Johnson, his friend and next door neighbor, Vice President Humphrey, his colleagues in the Senate, Robert Kennedy and George McGovern. That's who he was running against. But McCarthy was not without discipline and a sense of reality. After all, Benedictines are a discipline. He knew that the calculus of consent that is required for elective victory is a calculation of reality, not just a passionate sense of necessity and entitlement. In a pluralistic free society, to move your agenda, one has to compromise, entreat, schmooze, and socialize with the other side who does not agree with you. And the other side has to do the same. Passion balanced with consequentialist reasoning. The theological doctrine of atonement. that I alluded to earlier was much more than the Unitarian Church in the 18th century could take. Certainly, it's more than I can swallow. If taken to its logical conclusion, its dismal view of human capacity for good makes self-government impossible. Abject sinners cannot govern themselves. They need an autocrat, usually with a divine blessing. In this season of Easter, perhaps it's time to reevaluate the inspiration of Christ on the cross as something other than a slaughtering of an innocent lamb to take away the sins of the world. There are compelling reasons for many to risk their lives for their faith in justice and compassion and calculation. Think of the Czech immigrant to the US, Norbert Čapek, who became a Unitarian in New Jersey and wanted to spread our religious community and thought to Czechoslovakia, which he returned to in 1922. Čapek created the flower service we have and authored many hymns, one of which we're about to sing. Čapek's Praga church became the largest Unitarian congregation in the world. In the midst of a brutal Nazi occupation in the early 1940s, he continued to speak out against anti-Semitism and fascism. He wasn't trying to die. He was trying to tell the truth. He was trying to help people. And the consequence was he was predictably arrested. Čapek was gassed in 1942. Think of the German Christian Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who gave up a cushy tenured professorship in the US at the Union Theological Center in June 1939 to return to Germany. In 1939, was he crazy or was he passionate? To preach against anti-Semitism, he didn't stop. Authoritarian governance and German Christian religious services that were meaningless and often under the directionship of the SS. He was hung at Dachau in 1945. A young American theological student, Martin Luther King, was to live a life and a death similar to Bonhoeffer. Both were murdered by racists. Both were 39 years old when they were killed. Both had been deeply influenced by the social theologian Reinhold Niebuhr. Both saw religion as a social and political force in human beings where faith was about community and justice, especially racial and religious justice, not about cosmic control of a predestining God that threatened damnation. Both were passionate, yet strategized and calculated consequences. On February 26, 1965, Jimmy Lee Jackson, a deacon in the Baptist Church and an early activist for voting rights, was shot by a state trooper, James Fowler, in a restaurant in Marion, Alabama. He died from infection from gunshot wounds. Appalled by the murder, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference Director of Direct Action, James Imnes Bevel, called for a march of 50 miles from Selma to Montgomery, which was the capital of Alabama. Some 50 protesters were hospitalized from beatings at the hand of the police and the KKK on Bloody Sunday in Selma. One of the protesters, Amelia Boynton, was beaten unconscious. The Selma March activated the passion of Unitarian minister James Reeb. Reeb was working for the American Friends Service Committee in Boston at the time. He had seen the protesters beaten on the bridge on TV, and the next day heeded the call from Dr. King to come to Selma to witness for decency and human rights. I met Reverend Reed when he was an assistant minister at the church I attended, the All Souls Unitarian Church in Washington, D.C., in early 1961. Reeb, a wonderful man, a scholarly man, Reeb would be beaten to death by the KKK in Selma. I'm speaking of various crosses. Another Selma activist of our Unitarian faith suffered similar consequences. Viola Liuzzo, a mother of 5 from Detroit. She was driving activists to the airport. These were driving activists to the airport when she was shot to death by the KKK. Passionate courage. The other martyrs didn't die for some cosmic sacrifice to appease God. Their sacrifice was from their humanity, their passion for a reasoned truth, their rational calculation, how they could spread such a message. Like Jesus returning to Jerusalem, he didn't go to Jerusalem to die. He went to Jerusalem because he was ministering to people there. They went to Praga, Norbert Kepek. They went to Finkelwald, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. They went to Memphis, King, to Selma, Boynton, Liuzzo, James Reeb, and tragically to their death, leaving behind a vibrant moral message. Jesus extended the best of prophetic Judaism to the Greco-Roman world. Kepek and Bonhoeffer both were in the underground resistance against the brutality of the Nazis. Bonhoeffer was part of the conspiracy to assassinate Hitler. The meaning of words change according to history and culture. No word is more malleable than God. The historian Karen Armstrong's first major book was entitled The History of God. That is the history of people who created different understandings of God, demonstrating that all the Abrahamic religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and their respective denominations have defined God in very different ways, as have detractors of theism. Some are so repulsed by the word that they substitute spiritual, or enlightened, or angelic, or in the case of those who are not theists, wishful thinking. Ancient Jews considered the word so holy, they would not write it or speak it. Norbert Kepek understood this and had a Unitarian solution. However transcendent God is, ordinary people understand deities from their life experience, and they have many names. You can see Kepek's approach in the following hymn: Mother, Spirit, Father, Spirit. Let's sing it with Jackson, even if we have muted ourselves. That's it.
I don't have the hymnal. No one told me I was doing this. Does anybody else know how it goes? I don't even have a hymnal right now. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it.
You have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Wait. I got a hymnal.
Okay.
Oh, just give me 1 second. Okay. Sorry.
Number 8, Jackson.
Number 8. Okay. All right. So, Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, where are you? In the sky song, in the forest sounds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? Many drops are in the ocean deep and wide. Sunlight lost. Many drops are in the ocean deep and wide. In the sky song, in the forest sounds your cry. What to give you, what to call you, what am I? All right, that's all I'm doing.
I am empty, time flies from me. What is time? Dreams eternal, fears infernal haunt my heart. What to give you, what to call you, oh my God. Mother Spirit, Father Spirit, take our hearts.
Take our breath and let our voices sing our parts. Take our hands and let us work to shape our heart.
Thank you all so much for your creative innovation passion. Christine Linke will now acknowledge or watch our joys and concerns as Jackson plays the meditation music.
We invite everyone to share a joy or concern in the chat box. Can be something that you're feeling, just a few words, just a gentle reminder not to respond to each other. This is our time to bear witness. Following Jackson playing, there'll be a moment of silence, and then I'll do a brief summary of what everyone shared today. So one sentiment that was expressed was, yay, spring, gratitude for the flowers and the trees and the beautiful weather, and a lot of gratitude for today's service, for Bob's message, and for all of the beautiful music that everyone has contributed. There is also some sense of feeling overwhelmed, and just in general, and also with uncertainty about work. On the other hand, there is happiness about healing. Like I said, the spring, having a new home, and overall gratitude for all of our community. So for all of these things, and for the things that we did not express, we all hold each other in our hearts.
Bob Rhodes will read our closing words.
People say, what is the sense of our small effort? They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one small step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has a right to sit down and feel hopeless. There's too much work to do.
Now we extinguish our chalices with words written by Maureen O'Killoran. We extinguish this chalice flame, daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation and across the earth. Jackson will now play our postlude, and during the postlude, you can list any new announcements in the chat box. And Jackson, your piano faded out toward the end of the meditation music. In fact, the last 1/3 of it. So I don't know what you need to do to the piano or keyboard.
There was this huge update like a month ago. I've been having trouble. I don't know.
Jackson, you're not quite muted, but almost.
Right. Wow, that's weird because I got my phone. Can you hear me now?
We're getting closer to hearing you.
Wow. Hold on. Can you hear? Wow. Test 1, 2. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but it's low.
Wow. Hold on. Oh,
Well, the wow sounded pretty normal.
test 1, 2. Can you hear me? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Wow. So it must be, maybe it's my board. Maybe I need to get a new board. Can you hear that? Is that okay? Okay. So I'm doing guitar today. One of the reasons why is because of that. So.
Thank you, Jackson. Now we will see if there are any more announcements in the chat box. And while Christine is checking on that, I will express my heartfelt gratitude to Kelly Armour for having a setup that we can all follow each week and for jumping in and reducing the chaos. And to Bob Rhodes for presenting a message that I think deserves to go in the UU World magazine. Just throwing that thought out there. So, Christine.
Yes, yes. The only other thing that's in the chat box is just some late additions to Joys and Concerns was thank you to everyone for a truly wonderful service. So thank you to everyone who contributed. And other than that, Lee Costis would like to make an announcement, and that's our only announcement today.
Okay, thank you. I'm reporting on this week's Our Journey into Tomorrow pledge drive. I'm pleased to report that we have almost reached the $114,000 mark, which is 73% of what we need in order to have a full budget presentation for the board. And also pleased to report that 73% of the pledges received so far have been increases. So that's a magnificent testament to this congregation that we are ready, willing, and able to call Reverend Christina and have her come this summer as our settled minister. On the little bit on the downside, we did send out over 100 letters, packets of information to folks. And so far we have only received 53 pledges. So if you are in the other 50% who have not been able to send in your pledge yet, I ask you to please do so as soon as possible so that we can get the results tallied up. We can get that to the board and the board can move forward with finalizing a budget for our approval in June. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. We're here to help.
Thank you, Lee and Christina. Once again, I express my extreme gratitude to all those who participated in this service and invite you to join us next week when Reverend Christina Church will be in the virtual pulpit. We'll have some time for social opportunity in breakout rooms for about 10 minutes, and we'll have a short